Right, so for recording purposes, today is the final day on consumer arithmetic.
In a quiet village in Trinidad in 1950, children have gone missing. A strange tale spreads among the children. They whispered of a glowing light deep in the hills at night, a light that promised untold riches to those brave enough to follow it. Vihan's mother, a woman with deep-set eyes, warned him to stay home. But curiosity burned in his heart.
Right, so the story starts off in the 1950s, where superstition was, a big thing. And this is Vihan here, the protagonist of the story, and that's his mom over there. Right, so apparently a mysterious light appears in the forest on the hills. And of course, the villagers always warn their children, do not ever follow that particular light.
One night, while his mother slept, Vihan slipped out into the warm, humid air. The village was silent, except for the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. Heart-pounding, he followed the dim glow in the hills, stepping carefully over roots and fallen leaves.
Right, so Vihan did not obviously listen to his mother. He saw the light. And of course, they've been filled with a lot of stories. And if you follow the light and find the light, you'll find a lot of treasure and whatnot. All right, so gullible children, they end up following the light. We'll see how that turns out. All right, and we have a question today. You guys will be doing most of the work today. I'm going to present the question. It will be a good idea. I'll give you a little hint on how to proceed with the question. This question is based on commission. In case you don't know what commission is, a lot of companies, like when you go to work, and let's say you're a salesperson, let's say you're selling clothes or you're selling cars, your boss will give you a little bit of motivation. The more you sell, the more your salary will be. And so instead of just getting a normal, boring salary, your boss will say, hey, if for every car you sell, I'll give you a certain percentage of that profit. All right. So just do me a favor. This is actually based on SCA, but like I said, it comes back in high school and it comes back for CXC. I want everyone to take down the question and give it a try. There's no need to get it correct. You just need to try. Good luck and don't be shy about sending any answers. Right? And so let's let you know, that's the giveaway piece of the question. The commission in this particular question is 5%. Okay? So that means the boss will be giving him 5% extra of whatever is sold. All right, so good luck. So January comes. At the end of January, it's time to pay Timmy. Now here's what. Timmy gets a basic monthly salary of $5,000. So that means no matter what happens, whether Timmy does a good job or if Timmy does a bad job, his boss, no matter what, has to give him how much money? $5,000. This is whether Timmy did a good job or a bad job that month. That $5,000 going in his pockets. But Timmy also sold car parts, and the total worth of the car parts is $120,000. His commission is 5% of the sales he made that month. So the sales he made that month was $120,000. So other than the $5,000, we're going to find 5%. How you find 5% of something, right? 5 over 100. Remember, I showed you how to find a percentage of something. So we're finding 5% of this, 120,000. I think I forget all the zero there. Let's find that. 5% of 120,000. And I'm getting $6,000. So in addition to the 5,000, his boss now has to give him an extra $6,000 on top of that, which brings us to 11,000. So the answer, the final answer for part A is 11,000 because it's his base salary, his basic salary, which he's always going to get, but he will get 5% also of the sales the company that he caused the company to sell. And part B is almost the same thing. So March comes along, right? In part B, I'll use a different color here so we don't get mixed up. In part B, March comes along. So no matter what, Timmy getting $5,000, whether he do a bad job or a good job. But he is also going to get 5% of the sales he made that month. Now, March wasn't as good as January, but he did sell $18,000 worth of stuff. So he will get 5%, 5 over 100, and we find in 5% of 18,000. If you work this out on a calculator, right, let's see how much that is. 5 by 180, that's our 5 multiplied by 180. And this part here works out to how much? $900. So his commission is $900 and plus the 5,000 he is guaranteed. So the total he walks away with that month, if we add the 5,000 and 900, well, that's obviously 5,900. Right? So the more Timmy sells, the more money he goes home with. That's encouragement, right? Hopefully, when you guys grow up, you will get a boss like that or a job like that, right? The more you sell, the more money you go home with. All right? Great. So for those who got it wrong, I'll give you like a half a minute to take down the working, right? And I think the next question is a mixture of commission as well, plus some other. Right, the question has changed, right? So this one, let me just make sure. Timmy is paid a basic monthly salary of 5,000 again, but something went wrong with the company. But this time he's only given 2% of all the sales. Now here, this one has a little trick. He is given 2% of sales he makes over 30,000. So whoever his boss is, decide to move a little bit left with him. He's no longer just getting 2% of everything he sells. The boss says, hey, what? If you sell $80,000, you're not getting 2% of 80,000. Only the amount over 30,000. So he needs to sell 30,000 first before he starts to receive a commission. So this one is a little bit different. Okay? If he doesn't exceed that 30,000, sorry for Timmy, his commission doesn't take effect. Right? Good luck. Let's see what you come up with. In part A, no matter what, his basic salary is $5,000, right? So Timmy, no matter if he does a good job, bad job, the boss giving him 5,000. But in April, he sold $80,000. That seems to be more than 30,000. So his boss pats him on his back. He says, hey, you sell more than 30,000. You deserve a commission. But the commission is only on amount larger than 30,000. So if we sell 80,000, right? 80,000 can be broken up into two parts, right? The first 30,000 plus what? 50,000, right? 30,000 plus 50,000 is 80,000. He only gets the 2% on the 50,000. The first 30,000, he doesn't get the commission. He has to cross the 30,000 before the commission takes effect. And it only takes effect on the portion greater than 30,000. So in addition to the 5,000, he is going to get 2%. So we're going to find 2% of 50,000. How much does this part work out to? 2% of 50,000. 0.02 multiplied by 50,000. I'm getting $1,000. When you work this out, 2% of 50,000 is 1,000. So how much does he get? The 5,000 plus the 1,000 commission. He walks away with 6,000. Right? Right. Just checking through answers as much as I could. Right. So some people for part A got 6,600. Well, that's wrong, right? Because I think you found the 2% of the whole 80,000. He is not getting 2% of the 80,000. Only on the portion greater than 30,000. Right? All right, so let's try part B. Now, part B is a trick question. It's a trick question. When March comes around, now no matter what, Timmy is going to get $5,000, right? Remember, his basic salary is 5,000. He's getting 5,000 no matter what. But I think Timmy was slacking off that month. That month, he only sold $25,000. Only $25,000. Did Timmy cross the 30,000? No, he only sold 25,000. So will the commission take effect? No, he doesn't get a commission that month because he didn't cross 30,000. So he's only going to walk away with 5,000. Zero commission for him, no commission for him. The final answer is 5,000. All right. So that one was a trick question, right? So take down the working, right? Well, take down my working. Let's get moving, right? Let's continue with the story.
Vihan walked for hours, deeper and deeper into the forest. The trees loomed taller, the undergrowth thick and unyielding. The glow had vanished. He turned in circles, his breath quickening. Fear crept into his chest, he was lost. The rustling in the trees now felt different, less like the wind and more like something watching him. Suddenly from the shadows, figures leapt from the undergrowth, their green faces twisted in eerie grins. They moved fast, arms outstretched. Vihan turned and ran, crashing through the tangled forest, his heartbeat roaring in his ears.
Right, so some drama about to be unfolded there. All right, so we're gonna have a little scenario here, right? It's supposed to be fun, right? So here, you're this guy over here, right? So you're gonna pretend to be this person. You visit Susan, who runs a small green mart. So she sells little vegetables and garden stuff and whatnot. You ask her if she wants to buy a radio. Apparently, I miss out piece of the story, but apparently you found a radio in the trash. You were digging through the trash and you found an old radio. Susan has always been nice to you. How much dollars did you get for the radio? So read the scenario. She says, well, a new radio like this is worth 250 US. However, since it's old, I will give you 30% of the value. So she's not giving you $250 for that old radio. She will only give you 30% of its value. So how much money will she end up giving you? The answer has to be in US dollars. It starts off easy. It's an easy question. No 250. So for this question, how you find 30% of something? 30 over 100, and you multiply it by the value we're trying to find 30% of. So it's 250 US. Yeah, I don't think you even need a calculator for this. This zero will cancel out with this zero cancel out with this zero. 3 by 25 is how much US dollars? 75, not 175. Right? So you put that 75 US in your pocket, you tell Susan, thanks, and let's move on to the next scenario. Right? So some of you are just over taught the question. Right? You thought I was up to some trick, but I wasn't. Right? It's normal 75, not 175. Right? Oh, by the way, you don't have to take down the questions for this portion because there's a whole scenario to play out with little comic strips and everything. So you just have to produce the answers. That's all you have to do today. Right, let's go. Right, so remember you have 75 US in your pocket. Right. So apparently in this story, you are in Barbados. As you are in Barbados at the moment, you decide to convert the money to EC, Eastern Caribbean. Remember, you have 75 US in your pockets. But Barbados uses a different currency sometimes, Eastern Caribbean or EC dollars. But you are too stinky to go into the bank. You're supposed to be a homeless person in the story. So you visit a street hustler named Lil Quack. So you can see Lil Quack here with little shades, with little silver chain and whatnot. Looks real gangster. How much money will you be left with? So let's read the scenario. He has a sign up, right? The exchange rate is, he says, 5 US dollars will give you $12.25 EC. So that's his exchange rate. I have no idea why he stated his exchange rate so terribly, but it's still mathematically correct. And he has a service charge of 20%. What is a service charge? Well, you think Lil Quack is just going to change your money for free? You give him the US and he converts it to EC? No, he has to be paid. He wants to be paid for that service. But he will take 20%. He will take 20% and not you. So my question to you is, how much will you leave that place with in EC dollars? Think about it. Pretend you are the guy and you negotiating with Lil Quack. Okay? Okay. Good luck. So you walk up to Lil Quack and he has a little exchange rate there. So whenever it comes to exchange rates, I just put my cross up to till today when I go in the bank and I have to do any currency exchange. I just draw a little cross on the back of an envelope and I just do my little calculation. It's the only way I literally know how to do it. So it's two types of money we're dealing with here, US and EC. According to Lil Quack's sign, the exchange rate is this is what he said, 5 US is equivalent to 12.25 EC. That is what he said. And you walk up and you present how much money? You present 75 US. Now, that's the money Susan gave you, right? So the US that you have is 75. How much EC is that? Because if 5 US represents 12.25 EC, well, 75 US will represent a different amount. So you can do a little cross multiplication magic here. Let's cross multiply this diagonal first. 5 by x is what? 5x. 12.25 by 75. 12.25 by 75 is 918.75. I just double checking that. Yep. And we want to solve for x. Remember, x represents the amount of money in EC. So we know by now, if we're solving for x, that 5 is a multiply. Throw across a multiply, you get what? A divide. Divide that by 5. And to me, this is how much EC dollars. The amount of EC dollars, when we convert that 75 US, is $183.75. And you take that money and you put it in your pocket and you say, little quack, thank you. As you walk off, little quack says, whoa, 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 you quack me up. Come back here, right? You have to pay him. He wants 20% of that money. Now, there are two ways we could do this. If he's taking 20% of this money, the money that you just taught you get. And remember, you taught Lil Quack was working for free. If he's taking 20%, how much percent will you be left with? You see, this amount here is 100%. To me, the easy way to do this is some people will find 20% and minus it. Why go through all of that? You will walk away with only 80% of the money because he taken 20. So how much is 80% of 183 and 75? And the answer is, in the amount in EC, I run out of space here, will be 147. If you found 20% of this and then minus it from the 183, you would have ended up with the same answer. Right? And you could even do the cross. You could have put the cross and cross multiply with the 80%. And you'll get the same answer. I guess there's 3 ways you could do this question. Right? Look for your mistakes, look for your mistakes. Right? Like I said, some people would have found 20% of it. So if you found 20% of 183.75, you'll get $36.75. But that is Lil Quack's fee. Remember, the question asks, how much would you leave with? So after you pay him his $36.75, you would walk away with 147. All right. You decide to apply for a job, but you need good clothes. So you visit a clothes store and buy a shoe. It has already been discounted by 40%, right? Read this question. I know sometimes you walk into a store, right? And they have these sales and they tell you it has already been discounted, right? It has already been discounted for you. So the amount of dollars you see on the price tag is $42, but it has already been discounted by 40%. Okay? How much do you think the original price was? Is it a trick question? It have a big trick in this question. If the $42 was already discounted by 40%, how much was the original price before they decided to discount it? The original price, right? Let me just get the original price of the shoes, right? So let me say, let's get a space there right here, right? The original price, we do not know it. Think about it. Before we came into the store, this shoe was worth a certain price. We don't know it. It was, so we're going to call it X dollars. We don't know. The original price will be considered how much percent? 100%. So keep that in mind, all right? The original price before we walked in, probably last week, the shoes was worth a certain amount of money. We don't know it. So it's called X. Original prices are always regarded as 100%. You walk into the store now, the new price on the shoes is $42, but it has been discounted by 40%. Now that 40% is to distract you. Answer this question, if it was discounted by 40%, are you paying 40% for the shoe or 60%? Because remember, everything is out of 100%. So if the entire cost was 100% and they take off, the discount means they're taking off 40%. Are you paying 40% of the price or 60%? Because 40 from 100 to me is 60. And you're paying 60% of the price? So let's do a little cross here. There's two things we're dealing with here: money and percentage. The original price, we don't know. All we know is the original price would have been represented by 100%. You walk into the store and see these shoes is $42. That $42 is 60%, not 40%. They took off 40%, and you are paying what's left of that percentage, which is 60. You think you could cross multiply and solve for X now? This is the easiest way to do the question. And like I said, it was a triple X. Let's cross multiply here. X by 60 is 60X. 100 by 42 is 4200. Want to solve for X? 60 is a multiply, bam. Throw it across, you get a divide. Again, a flat $70. It's $70. EC dollars, right? Because everything is in EC right now. Right? So the point is you paid $42 for the shoes. Well, we're just trying to figure out what the price was before the discount, just out of curiosity. I'm checking through my messages there. All right, let's continue the story.
They tied Vihan's hands. Men with the strange green masks in tuxedos surrounded him and the fire. They muttered words in a language Vihan did not understand. Suddenly a large creature approached with hunger in its eyes. Vihan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Vihan was sure this was the end for him. He would never see home again, and he would die as a sacrifice for a mad and mysterious cult that worshipped the Lagahu.
Right, so have a little bit more Trinidad folklore in it, the Lagahu, right? So
Then when the end seemed inevitable, something threw exploding powder into the fire, and there was a bright light that temporarily blinded everyone around. A strange figure jumped from the trees and spoke in a harsh but friendly voice.
right, so something throws something in the fire. There's a magic spark with a bright light. And it's Papa Boy to the rescue. Right? All right, so we'll see how that turns out. All right, So now things are a little better for you. You're off the streets, and apparently you get a job working in a small cafe. The basic pay, I hope you all remember this from last week. The basic pay is 40 hours a week. And that basic pay, well, once you work up to 40 hours or less, you get $32 EC an hour. For every hour, you get 32 EC. And overtime pay is time and a half. You work 57 hours a particular week. Calculate how much money you came home with, right? You can forget all the other values in the previous slides. It's a fresh scenario now. I just want to know how much money you got if you worked 57 hours. Right? That is all I'm asking. So remember, once he cross 40 hours, he gets paid more for every hour, more than the 40. Yeah? And he clearly crossed 40 hours that week. He worked 57. So how it works? So let's break up that 57 hours into two categories. The 57 can be broken up into the first 40 hours and then 17 hours, right? 40 plus 17 is how much? 57. For the first 40 hours, he gets paid how much? $32 for each of those hours for the first 40 hours. So 40 by 32, well, I'm getting this, 1280. But once he exceeds 40, every hour over the 40, he gets more money. He gets time and a half. He no longer gets $32. How much is 32 multiplied by 1.5? Time and a half means 1.5, 1.5. So 32 by 1.5 or 1.5 is 48 hours. You see, his pay rate went up now for the next section of his work. Instead of getting $32, he gets $48 for each of those 17 hours. When I multiply these two, I get 816. Add it up. And this is the amount of EC dollars. When you add it up, you're getting 2096. Right, check it working, right? All right, let me see what's going on here. One day you found a phone in the trash, right? You use it for a few days based on the rates below. How much money did you spend if you used it for 63 hours? I'm gonna trust that you all can calculate your own phone bill because it's something, especially for those who have postpaid and what is postpaid? Yeah, postpaid plans and whatnot. So see if you can figure it out, right? Once again, you don't have to get it correct, just try. That's nothing. A fixed charge is a charge that you just pay whether you use the service or not. Your water, when WASA sends you a bill, let's say water lock off for the whole year, and you ain't get a drop of water, you know you still have to pay a bill. There is a fixed charge. Well, when it comes to certain things, right? Well, whether it's TNT, whether it's a phone, whether it's water, right? You will always have to pay that charge no matter what. I know it seems unfair, but there is a good reason for it. I won't get into it, right? But there is a good reason for it. So no matter what, you have to pay that $12.50, whether you use it for 0 minutes or whether you use it for 63 minutes. So we'll make sure and add on that $12.50 at the end of the question. So he used the phone for 63 minutes. That 63 minutes can be, remember, the first 40 minutes is a different rate for everything after 40 minutes. So this 63 minutes can be broken up into two categories, into 40 minutes, and 63 is 23 more than 40, right? So for the first 40 minutes, he gets charged how much? 35 cents for every minute. So let's work out the rate for the first 40 minutes. 40 by 35 cents, I'm getting $14. Everything after 40, he gets charged less. So for the next 23, the excess above 40, he gets charged 15 cents. 23 by 15. That's not something went wrong there. 23 multiplied by 15 cents, 0.15. I get $3.45. So for the first 40 minutes, he gets charged $14, and for the 23 minutes, he gets $3.45. The total is 14 plus the $3.45 plus he has to pay $20.50 no matter what extra. That is just the fixed charge. That's going to be there whether he used the phone or not. So how much is the total now? Let's add up all three. I get in this for my final answer in EC dollars. $37.95. You all agree with that? Yeah, people are, well, a lot of, not everybody, but a few people did send that answer. Right. You can't forget that $20, right? A fixed charge. Well, when you all start paying your own bills and everything, you're gonna realize how it is, right? A lot of things have a fixed charge. All right. Now I'm gonna make this question easier because I don't want to use the number from the previous slide, right? You decide to take all your money and invest it in a bank for 2 years at compound interest. Okay? How much was the value on the last slide? We're gonna assume it was $40, right? I know it's $37.95, but let's just round it up to $40. So I hope everyone remembers that 40. So we walk into the bank with 40 EC dollars. And we're going to put it in this bank, which offers compound interest at 16%. How much money would you have at the end of the 2 years? Remember, compound interest, look back in the notes. If it's 2 years, it's two sets of calculations. So that's why I have two squares there now in preparation for my two pieces of calculation. Also, in compound interest, the time is always 1. If you look back in the notes, you will see that. The time in compound interest is always 1. Good. Compound interest uses the same formula as simple interest. Interest is principal by rate by the time in years divided by 100. For year 1, remember, he walked into the bank with $40. The rate in this bank is 16%. And the time in compound interest is always 1. I know they're talking about 2 years, but when you're using this formula, the time is always 1. So let's see how much is the interest. Remember, the interest is just the extra amount he gets. 40 by 16 by 1 divided by 100. It seems the extra money he got is $6.40, 6.4. So how much is the amount? I'll use AMT for amount. Remember, he walked into the bank with $40. The extra amount, the interest, is $6.40. So to me, he at the end of the first year, he ends up with $46.40. That is how much he has at the end of year 1. And that value topples over into year 2. He starts year 2 with $46.40. This is the new principal, right? The new principal. So when you go to year 2 to calculate the interest, interest is principal by rate by time over 100. I'm put it a little closer, so I need a space. Principal by rate by time. The principal is $46.40. Remember, that's a new principal. Huh? The rate, well, last time I checked, is still 16%. And I don't care if we in year 2, time is still 1. If you look back in your notes from last week, the time is always 1. $46.40 by 16 by 1 plus, so divided by 100, I'm getting how much? 7. If I go to 2 decimal places, right? So how much is the total amount he has now? Remember, at the beginning of year 2, he walking with $46.40. And now we get an extra 742, right? And this is how we got what? The 53 something, well, 50 something, 53.82. Right? Straight out of last week, right? Right? Remember, you had to add. All right, let's continue with the story. Right, rain is falling.
Papa Boa and Vihan ran until the sun began to rise. When it was safe they stopped, and Papa Boa explained to Vihan that while he doesn't care much for humans, he could not let the cult sacrifice him. Also he explained that the Laga who is his sworn enemy as it harms and eats his animal friends.
Right, so Lagahu is neither a friend, it's not really a friend. He doesn't like humans, but he still has a heart, right? He couldn't let them sacrifice Vihan. And well, he hates the Lagahu even more. So, you know, he chose to save you over the Lagahu, right? So, right, he just saves you, and well, that's the end of his health there. You're on, Vihan is on its own after a while.
Papa Boa looks at Vihan, warns him that if he harms any of his animal friends in the forest he will conjure a terrible vengeance on him. He also warns Vihan that he is a man of his word.
All right, so Papa Boa has left some instructions with him, right? But we won't get the full story today. Next week we'll continue the story, right? Well, we're not finished, right? But you'll get the next half of the story next week. Not next week, tomorrow. All right, so let's see what's going on in this scenario. One day you meet a crying donut. I know what's going on here. He says he invested $500 in a bank and he got $85 interest after 4 years. But he can't remember the amount. He can't remember the simple interest rate. Right? You think you can help him figure out the simple interest rate? See if you can help him out. It looks pretty sad there. What was the interest rate? 50%, 10%, 8%? Help him out. It's a simple interest question. So why not put down the formula for simple interest? Let that be a starting point. Interest is principal by rate by time over 100. Remember, interest is the same thing as interest on 1. The reason is no. If you can plug in the values, like replace I with the interest, P with the principal, T with the time, and you can cross multiply and solve for R. It's really a cross multiplication question in disguise. And we did an example just like this one last week. So I hope that helps a little. Correct answers. Let's start substituting in some values here. The interest is the extra amount the person gets. So they got back an extra $85. So that 85 is the interest. So 85 on one. The principal is 500. That's how much you put into the bank. We don't know the rate, and we know time is 4. So let's move over here, right? We can multiply the 504, right? We could multiply those two things. So 500 by 4 is 2,000. So 85 on 1, 85 on 1, 500 by 4 is 2,000. So it's 2,000 by R over 100. Let's cross multiply. Anything by 1 is itself. 85 by 100 is 8,500. 2,000 is a multiply, throw it across, you get a divide. Your rate is 8,500 divided by 2,000, and it's 4.25%. Right? A lot of people got that, so that's good news. By the way, these questions that we're doing is considered CXE levels, level difficulty, and Form 5 level difficulty. Oh, Lord. All right. It's quarter past. So let's see this question. You get a job with a company that sells haunted mansions. You get a base salary per month of 500 EC. At the end of the year, you are given 8% commission on the sales over. So anything over 150,000, you get an 8% commission on it. How much money did you make for the year if you sold 180,000 worth of houses between January and December? All right. Good luck with this question. It isn't a hard question. We did commissions, but keep in mind that 8% is not on everything you sell. To activate that commission, you have to sell more than 150,000. And you only get the 8% on the excess over 150. And they ask you how much you get for the year. That's a little trick there. Good luck. This could be the last question we're doing, in case you wonder. Right? This could be the last question, and it's not a hard question. Very small trick. Remember, the base salary per month is 500. Remember, the base salary is how much he's going to get, whether he do a good job or bad job. But if it's 1,200 per month, shouldn't you take that 12 and multiply by the 500? You should at least do that. So you'll get $6,000. So between January and December, whether he do a good or bad job, he getting $6,000. But he sell 180 worth of houses, 1,000 worth of houses. Isn't that more than 150? So the commission has been activated. So in addition to that, now he doesn't get the 8% on the full 180, just how much is more than the 150, which is 30,000. Because 150 plus the 30 will give you 180,000. So the commission is 8% of the 30,000. Not the full 180, unfortunately. Life would have been good if it was the full 180, but that's how this particular commission works. So to get his total yearly salary, add his commission plus his basic yearly salary, and you will get 8,400. Some people forgot this step. They got the $30,000 part correct, right? But they didn't get the other part correct. All right. So, right. So some people said they just read the question wrong. Not a problem. All right. So like I said, today is the last Monday class. Sunday is the last day for classes, and then we'll open back on January the 5th, the same day as school. Right. So I'll see some of you all tomorrow for maths class. Everyone is invited, right? And we should be trying to finish up past paper questions on quadratics tomorrow. Right. So that's pretty much it guys. Thanks for coming out and hope you all enjoy the story. Have a good night.